Hello everybody, welcome back to Mohawk Motors. My name is Jason. If you've been following along, I've been promising you some more truck content, stuff like that. And well, here we go, we're getting into some. So I'm running out of daylight quickly, but I want to try to get part of this started for you guys. You know, the problem with the internet is it makes it way too easy to buy stuff that you don't need. And no matter how hard I try, I can't get myself to stop looking. Like, if you don't look, you won't buy. But I can't stop. I can't stop myself. And I bought another one, and here it is. So we've got a 2006 Silverado 2500 HD. You can see it's the crew cab, short bed version of it, 4-wheel drive. Looks like the previous owner, who was the original and only owner, was Blatt Construction. I'm pretty sure that matches what the title says also. I bought this one at auction, and I'll tell you, it was one of those ones that it was too good a price to say no to. I find that if I watch the live auction, I pick the stuff that I think might go cheap, and then I watch, and then a lot of times it will go cheap. And that was the case with this thing. It's got a 6-liter LS engine, automatic transmission, the 4L80E, as I said, 4-wheel drive, and it was listed as unknown running condition. They didn't know if it would run or not, but I was able to look through the pictures and see that there's no battery in the truck. And then looking through the pictures some more, I can see that it had some plow stuff in it. It's still got the plow stuff in the front. Somebody's had the column apart for an unknown reason. But it's a bare bones work truck model, nothing special, nothing fancy. But I'd be willing to bet, I bet if I stick a battery in this thing, it'll run. So I'm going to check a few things out first. We're going to slam a battery in there, check a few more things, and see if we can get this thing to start up so I can get it off my trailer, because I'm picking up another truck tomorrow. It's a sickness, guys. It's a sickness. I can't help myself. Now this thing, I got it from Copart, so I'm sure some of you recognize the sticker right away, but the primary damage listed on this thing was hail. And if you can see this hood, she's been through some hail. And that's also why I'm really hoping that this thing will probably start and run. But let's check a few things first, right? Let's look for any major red flags. As you can see, no battery. We do have battery cables that are still here. We got a positive and a negative. That's good. PCM is still here. Appears to be plugged in. Actually, look at this. Security seal. So this is not the original PCM. This is either a reman or rebuilt or something. That may be bad news for us. Let's see, we've got a belt. Got the air intake plumbing under the hood. A lot of the stuff I would expect for a fleet vehicle. You know, it's probably never had anything done to it except for the bare minimum and maintenance. Looks like we've still got the little light control box for the plow lights. Like I said, we've still got plow brackets and plow connections here in the front. Oh, typical plow truck. Almost no brake fluid in the reservoir. So I'd be willing to bet we're going to need to do some brake lines on this truck. Did I mention that I bought it with a clean, clear title? That was a big selling point for me. Trucks with clean titles, I can put back together and sell as whole trucks. Or keep. Or sell. It depends on if I fall in love with them or not, which, if you know my track record, let's see. Let's check the fluids over here. Coolant in the reservoir. That's a good sign. Oh, I just broke my tripod. How about the dipstick? How's that look? Oil on the dipstick. Right up to the full mark. That's a good sign. Doesn't smell like gas, just smells like engine oil. What about the transmission? We've got no brake lines. Well, we may have brake lines, but we've got very little brake fluid. Are the transmission cooler lines still in this thing? We've got transmission fluid. And it doesn't smell like it came out of a volcano. So the transmission fluid may be okay. Man, will this thing actually drive off the trailer if we get it started? Well, now I'm getting a little bit excited. Let me grab a battery, and we'll check and make sure it doesn't burst into flame as soon as I hook a good battery up. And then maybe we'll see, I don't know, we'll take a look at this thing and see what else we can find out about it. All right, let's see here. There we go. All right, so there's no negative terminal bolt here. I can't say I'm surprised. That's a pretty common delete feature. I'm gonna get the positive terminal hooked up first. That's pretty good. And I've got myself a makeshift negative terminal bolt that I think will thread in. Yeah, maybe enough to make contact. We'll have to see. I'm going to check and make sure the key's off. Key was on, glad I checked. Now let's see, if we tap this negative, well, okay, well that's acting like the key is on, and the key is not even in the ignition, so that's a problem. Or at least it's not a good sign. What happens if we, get this in here? Well, you're not going to make a good temporary bolt, are you? Nope. All right, I gotta find an actual battery terminal bolt. Hold on. Okay, I had to borrow it from another truck. Yeah, I can hear computers and stuff powering up. Shouldn't be happening without a key in it. That's not a good sign. So far, no smoke out here. No smoke on the inside. Let's go in and see what we got going on. Try not to fall and break my neck. All right. I got a key here. All right, we powered up. Wow, this thing is a cherry. 85,000 miles. Wow, better than I thought. She powers up, that's good. Says there's no gas. We got no. Do we have a brake pedal? No, we got no brake pedal. That's not surprising. We got no cranklage either though. And we got no range indicator. Well, we got power. Let's try just jumping the starter relay and see if that gets us anywhere. I'll be right back. Got a couple T-pins. We got our starter relay here. Now let's see. 30 and 87. All right. So this should, if I jump these, it should crank. Okay, we got an engine that cranks, it spins. All right, let's flip the key on and see if it starts. I'm feeling pretty good, guys. 85,000 miles. Low likelihood that this engine is blown up. Low likelihood that the transmission is smoked. But pretty clear likelihood that whoever was doing this plow wiring really, they probably shouldn't have been doing it. Doesn't want to start. We got something going on. I mean, the gas gauge is buried at empty. She just completely out of gas. Let me give her a little sniff of starting fluid and see if she kicks off. If she does, I can put some gas in the tank. Let's try that. All right, let's see here. Let's get this intake tube off. I mean, 85,000 miles. I'd be willing to bet that any problems this thing has are operator caused, owner caused. There's electrical mess all over this thing, and the fact that there's a new PCM in it tells me that they didn't have somebody who knew what they were doing working on this thing. Come on out of there. Oh man, that does make me think too though. Man, did they put a new PCM in it and it's not without reprogramming it to disable so it would get along with the rest of the truck? You can't just slap a PCM in this baby and expect it to start. They need to be programmed. Let's give her a little. Oh man, there we go. If she's gonna do something, that should do it. Just give me a little. No, on that one. There's not much left in here. Hey, all right. We got a little tickle. I'm gonna put some gas in it and we'll try again. All right, I put some gas in it. Key is on. Let's see. Let's cycle the key once or twice to get the fuel system filled up. And let's try that. Should we grab a Noid light, see if we're getting injector pulse? Can't hurt to check, right? She kicked off starter fluid, so I believe we have spark, but maybe we're not getting fuel. All right, got the Noid light down there. Let's crank it, see what happens. That's what I thought. No injector pulse. All right. Well, now we got to figure out why we've got no injector pulse. Check the simple stuff first, right? I am quickly running out of daylight. I may need to just roll this thing off the trailer and come back to it another day.
1 week later.
I'm down here, I'm working on this red truck again, and I thought to myself, you know, it's got electrical gremlins, stuff going on. Let's check the stuff that we know gets messed up pretty frequently in these things. So I went through, I checked all the fuses are good. I checked the relays, all the relays test good. But I did find what is common in these trucks is under these fuse panels, this place makes like a perfect little home for rodents, especially mice and things like that. Now, I don't know if it shows up here in the video, but you can see we've got some chewed wires down there. We got some chewed wires down right there. And we've got some pretty substantially chewed wires here. Like this one is all the way down to bare copper. I'm gonna have to splice in a section of wire to repair that. So there's nothing special or fancy about this. It's literally just cut out the wire, splice in some new wire. I have an old harness here that I think I have probably the same color wire in, so I can splice it and make it look easy to trace. But I'm gonna get these wires repaired before I do any other diagnosis in this thing, because that's an obvious problem and it's also a potential for fire, and I definitely don't want to get this thing hooked up, working, running again, and then have an electrical fire from a rodent chewing on some mice, chewing on some wires. So I'll bring you back once I have those fixed. We'll proceed through. I have a couple other things I want to check also. All right, everybody, a few days later, I'm working on this red truck. I need to try to get this thing started because it's going to make it 1,000% easier to get it onto the lift. So I've done a couple things this morning. I went through and I repaired all the wires that were rodent chewed and cut up and down in here on below the fuse box. That's pretty straightforward. Just cut out the bad pieces, splice in some new. I also went through, I was cleaning out the truck, and lo and behold, what do I find inside of there? The original PCM. So I hooked it up on my bench harness, checked it for codes, no codes, did a live data reading on it. All the data parameters are displaying what they should be. So as far as I can tell, that PCM is just fine. Now, what I'm thinking here, and it's one more thing I'm gonna check, is, if you remember the other day, I wasn't getting any injector pulse. Now, there is a ground to the engine block right down there behind the power steering pump. And if that ground isn't making good contact, that's the ground that's used for the injectors. So I'm suspicious that whoever was trying to diagnose this truck, they got to the same point. They weren't getting an injector pulse. They thought the PCM was bad, I don't think there's anything wrong with that PCM. I'm probably going to put the stock PCM back in here. But what I think is wrong is that ground is probably bad. They notoriously, and I've seen this over and over again, they get super, super rusty, and the corrosion wicks up into the wire and actually degrades the wire to the point that it won't conduct electricity. So I'm gonna see if I can't wiggle my way in there to get that ground off and get it checked, and more than likely replace it. I'd be willing to bet that's why this thing has no injector pulse. I'll get that fixed and then see if it'll start. I probably will throw the battery back in here and see if it'll start before I do all that, because it is a pain in the butt to get to that ground and fix it. But I'm really suspicious that's the problem, is that engine block ground down there has corroded, especially because, I mean, this truck must have been a plow truck. Well, it was a plow truck. It's got plow brackets and plow wiring on it. So this thing's been in the salt and snow and slush and whatever else. So I'd be willing to bet that ground has corroded and it's not making contact. So the PCM isn't able to provide the ground to fire the injectors. Okay, everybody, here's where I'm at on this thing. I did go ahead. I took the PCM they had in the truck out. I'm glad I did, because whoever swapped the PCM didn't bother to put the weather seals back on the PCM connectors, which would have been inevitably a nightmare at some point. So I had some spare weather seals. I put those on. I got the original to the truck PCM put back into it. Now I did scan the replacement PCM that they had in there, and it was programmed for the right truck. It had the right VIN number in it. It was a different operating system. I don't know if the operating system really matters so much to the anti-theft system of the truck, but since I know this PCM is working fine, I've just put it back in there anyway. And the truck still behaves and does the exact same thing it was doing with the other PCM. I still can't get it to crank off the key. I have a couple more fuses and relays to check just to make sure that they're all good. But by jumping the starter relay out here, I can crank the engine over with the key on, and I'm still not getting injector pulse. So that's really pushing me towards, I'm fairly confident that engine block ground down behind the power steering pump is our primary problem here. Especially because that could both be causing the starter relay to not have a ground, as well as the injectors to not have a ground. So I think next step when I come back out here, probably tomorrow or the next day, is going to be get that ground down behind the power steering pump checked out, cleaned up, make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and then check the two grounds at the back of the engine block also and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I think in order to do that, I'm going to try to pivot this thing sideways on a jack and then get it up on the lift, because it'll just be so much easier to work on that way, and it'll just be easier. So I think that's where I'm leaving it for today. I'll bring you guys back tomorrow. We'll try to get this thing started. Team, it's time for a victory lap. It's actually not time for a victory lap yet, but I do have good news to share. So I've been working on this truck a good bit today, probably another, I'd say probably total 2 hours or so. You can see I got it up on the lift. I raised it up, got the wheels off. I'm trying to get a list together of all the parts I'm gonna need to order for this thing. I'll show you when I raise it back up in the air. I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that this truck needs less work than I thought it was going to need. I was kind of expecting I was gonna have to do a whole set of brake lines, a bunch of other maybe fuel lines, things like that on this truck, but even though I'm pretty confident they were using it as like a yard plow truck or just a lot plow truck somewhere, it's really clean underneath, and it looks like they've been doing some kind of under treatment on it, fluid film or something. They've been doing some kind of treatment on the bottom of this truck to try to prevent rust, and it's worked because the brake lines all look good, the fuel lines look good. There is The axle brake lines, I'll show you when we get under there, but all the brake fluid, I think my only brake problem is some bad brake lines on the rear axle. I think everything else is gonna be okay. But I figured it out. As I suspected, previously said, I felt like I had a ground problem. And I did suspect that it was the ground to the engine block down here behind the power steering pump. Well, I got that pulled out, all cleaned up, put back together. I inspected it, and it really, that one is actually one of the better looking ones I've seen. So that wasn't the problem. So then I wanted to check this ground strap here runs to the back of the block. There's another ground from the wire harness to that one. So I got the truck lifted up, got that one undone, inspected, cleaned. That ground looks good. While I was underneath, I peeked over. There's a third ground that runs to the back of the engine block on this side. And I could see from underneath that ground wire was broken. I should have saved it. I already threw it away, but that ground looked like it had been smashed up or really severely chewed by a rodent to the point that it actually broke. So I repaired it. I cut off back until I found good copper again and heat shrink crimped on a new piece of wire. I've got that jumped over to my negative terminal on the battery just to make sure I've got a good ground, and she starts. She's running a little rough, and I'd be willing to bet that's because it's got one, crappy old gas in it, because this thing was last inspected in June of 2022. So who knows how long after that happened it was actually parked. So it's got crappy old gas in it. I haven't gone through any of the ignition yet. I know I've got at least one injector unplugged. So I'm gonna get that injector plugged back in and go over some things, get that wire repaired permanently, and yeah, just continue on. Now that the engine runs and it doesn't sound like it's swinging a bunch of hammers around inside of it, I feel confident enough to go ahead and continue with this project. I'm gonna order the brake parts that I need. I'm going to order the brake line that I need. It needs motor mounts, some other things, but yeah, I feel confident enough now that I know the engine is okay to continue on with the project. But that's it for now. We got it running. Another, geez, it's 85,000 miles. I believe it's a true 85,000 miles based on the truck and what I see. So next video will be starting to get this thing put back together, prepped, ready to be put back on the road again. So, whew, I'm glad we got it going, team. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And if you're working on these trucks, always remember those 3 grounds. They are all 3 important. If they are all 3 not making good contact, you don't have a good ground to all 3 of them, you're gonna have issues. So, thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.